Bigfoot on the ropes, taking 2 hard shots.
We just got back from fighting our antweight flipper Bigfoot at Betz Botz. We brought both version 2 and 3. If you see the green unpainted plastic, that's version 3. If you see the painted brown plastic, that's version 2. And with that said, let's get on with the video. Our first fight was against Nosferatu. Going into this, they were ranked 3rd, and they've beat us twice in the past, so we were looking pretty intimidated. I went with the version 3 to have every advantage I could get. As you'll see, the extra speed sort of helps us out in sort of dodging his attacks and getting where I need to go. I also felt that with the new motors that have a lot more control than I did before in my movements. Throughout, we're able to lock forks instead of getting hit a lot of times. Although even when I do get hit, I seem to get lucky and land on my feet. Yeah, I sort of try to keep locking horns. You'll see that both of us, since the floor was real rough going into the event, anyone with forks was getting stuck a lot. He almost went into the pit on that last exchange. I keep trying to use his aggression against him, kind of waiting for him to flail and then trying to capitalize, but can't quite capitalize as much as I want. Got stuck on the ground there. This is where he runs into the side of the wall. He ends up getting stuck. His entire bot essentially shut down. So we ended up getting essentially a free win, which I'll take. But even though we won kind of through luck, I felt pretty good about how I was driving. He wasn't able to basically get any real good hits in. The only damage was some damage to the bottom, which, as you can see here. But otherwise, we were feeling good after that. Our second fight was against a 4-wheel drive drum spinner called Ampere. Ampere definitely made some changes between his last event because he was not ranked super high but ended up doing well at this event. Arguably should have went with version 3 going into it, because even though we're able to get underneath him and sort of push him around a bit and he has troubles doing damage to us, I think that version 3 might have been better in this fight. Ultimately, we're holding our own so far, but the condition of the floor really holds us back with our forks getting stuck. And then here, he's able to get our corner and sort of pop us upside down. And then this series of pops ends up disconnecting 2 wires and ends up taking out 3 of the motors. So we're pretty much just got 1 wheel spinning, and we're basically dead in the water. And then he ends up popping us upside down, getting that last tire, and then forcing me to tap out. Going to this event, I had glued the connections on all of my motors and all the controllers, but the one I didn't do it on was that one, and I ended up losing the fight because of it. I think we could have came back if I would have kept my connections together, because we weren't taking too much damage, and I showed that I could get underneath them, so I just needed to, so I could have came back. Our third fight was against Killjoy, a vertical spinner with 3 Omni wheels. Keep in mind that the driver of this is not the builder for this event. Normally Jared drives it, but Stephanie was driving today. I was feeling pretty good going into this fight because with the Omni wheels I knew I was able to push them around. I find out pretty early on that with that 1 fork it isn't able to do much, and so I'm able to get underneath them pretty consistently. It actually looks like it's bouncing on the ground. I'm able to get a flip in early on, but then drive my wheel right into their weapon, which ultimately isn't too bad because I have 3 more, but after that I end up being a little bit more careful. As you saw there, Jer added a self-righting mechanism, which seems to be at least somewhat effective, but it took a few tries, but ultimately was able to get Killjoy back on its feet. Killjoy is able to keep strafing around me, but isn't quite able to, get a bite on me. Get a pin, but I don't fire the weapon because my flipper's right underneath the spinner, and that would have killed the flipper. Keep strafing around me, but try to capitalize on their mistake. Still careful at this point because I know they haven't really scored any points and they can't really do much to me, and so I figure that I just don't want to make a mistake. Here I'm able to get one last flip in. I'm more careful this time because I know I lost a tire trying to drive into him last time. The self-righter isn't quite able to self-right before the end. I try to push them into the wall to possibly get a knockout, but ultimately I run out of time. So it ends up with Bigfoot winning by judge's decision. Our fourth fight was against a vertically symmetrical wedge called Cavorting Beastie. Going into this match, we were both 2-1, so whoever won this match got to go on to the single elimination bracket. They were just as fast as we were and just as well driven, although I think they might have had slightly more traction. You can see throughout the entire match, neither one of us had control of the other robot for more than a second because we were able to just sort of slide off of each other or get away from each other. I wasn't able to use the flipper much at all. I didn't flip them a single time. I think a big learning point, other than that I need to brush up on my driving, is that I should run the flipper upwards against vertically symmetrical wedges. That way I can clamp down on them with the flipper. But yeah, this was an intense match. I had to drive my best throughout the entire match. And it's hard to say. There we go. We end up getting underneath them like that and a few times, but I think if I ran the flipper upwards, I would be able to clamp down and actually hold them a bit longer and actually turn it into a pin. Ultimately, though, and unfortunately, they end up getting the judge's decision, which I think was mostly because I had a weapon that I wasn't able to use because of their driving. And so we ended the day at 2-2, and this was our last match of the day. And I'll just let it play out the rest of it. Betz Botz was really competitive this time around, but Bigfoot held its own. Even though it didn't quite make it into the single elimination bracket, we still have some takeaways. Version 3, the drive performed as expected. It's faster and more controllable. Unfortunately, I didn't quite get the chance to see if the flipper works as well as version 2 with the matchups we had and just kind of how they went. Another takeaway, the only thing I want to change about the bot is spacing out the forks. That way the vertical spinners can't get us from the corners quite as easily, and we don't have that sort of weak point there. And then there is the driving against certain wedges, that way, and using the flipper as a clamper as default against the vertically symmetrical wedges. But other than that, be sure to